Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going.
Hey.
Is that background Homeland?
No, Eve.
No.
Eve Online.
Eve. I swore that the double sail ship was something from like Homelander. Just couldn't place it.
Yeah, I could see that. Like one of the exploration things.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi there.
I think we could probably get started, actually. I am probably not the most prepared for this meeting, so I apologize in advance. But yeah, let's jump into it. Welcome, everyone. If you are here, please make sure you add your name to the attendees list on the agenda docs. If you have anything you'd like to discuss, add it to the agenda. I've had one thing there currently, but I've got probably some other things I kind of wanted to go over the RC project board and that kind of thing. So let me start sharing my screen and we can jump into it. Cool. Yeah, we can start off, I guess, by noticing what's not there. And that would be the OpenTelemetry specification audit for our SIG that was completed last week. So officially, yeah, we're all done. There was a PR that was closed. And so ideally, this is a pretty comprehensive project board now that is going to get us to RC. There's some caveats I think there, which hopefully we'll kind of talk about in a second. But yeah, overall like momentum here, we're doing good. We're going down in the to-do column. The in progress is going down. It's actually remaining pretty stable. We're definitely seeing a lot more activity in just like getting things across the board done. Still a little slower than I'd like, but you can't force perfection is how I look at it. Yeah, still making progress, so that's definitely a positive direction. The issues themselves are definitely flowing through. I would like to go over these a little bit, just so we can maybe just talk about at a high level for anything that's in progress. And I think all of these are mine for PRs that are actually open for the review to approved, which I can kind of maybe we don't have to go too deep into any of these. I do know that this needs more eyes. It definitely needs my eyes on it. That is something that I think that Pablo has just submitted another PR for. Yeah, and definitely needs some more eyes on this. Came out yesterday. I definitely know that if you're looking for PR reviews, as everyone always does, you know, at every hour of the day, these are also some really good PRs that could definitely use some more reviews. Anthony's, I think, reviewed almost all of these, if not all of these. Yes. So Anthony is definitely exempt from that request. And thanks again, Anthony, for doing all the reviewing while I sit idly by and do none of it. So yeah, I'm definitely to blame for a lot of it as well. That being said, blaming aside, definitely would appreciate any kind of review. It is really helpful in progressing the project and progressing this project board. So yeah, really appreciate it. We're kind of coming back.
You're doing far more coding than I am. So you do the coding, I'll do the reviewing, and it's a fair trade.
Yeah, I wish my job was just coding. Yeah, it turns out there's a need to keep current and help progress the project for reviewing. But yeah, I appreciate it. So maybe, yeah, we can kind of just jump in a little bit to the in progress. I've got two in here, which can, maybe I can just kind of highlight what I've been up to for the past week and make sure that everyone's kind of aware of that. order on these doesn't really make any difference to me. If anyone else has a strong opinion that the order on these is really important, let me know, because I don't mean to offend anybody by moving things up or down. So the clarification between the package demarcation for SDK trace and SDK export hasn't moved since last week, because I went through this and I have like kind of a proof of concept, and I realized that one of the blockers is that the bundler in the Jaeger exporter is something that requires a value to be set into it so it can bundle things effectively. And currently we're passing in whatever the export spans argument is. So if we're going to change that into something that's an interface, it can't work with the bundler. So then it comes to the question of, why is the bundler even there? And I don't have a good answer for that. And I think I went through a lot of the history, and I think it extends because it was there prior to span processors existing. It was prior to, actually, I think it was prior to the exporter interface existing in its current form. I definitely know it was there before its current form. So like the exporter, the Jaeger exporter itself predates a lot of stuff in the OpenTelemetry tracing pipeline. So I think if the bundler was there prior to the batching span processor, I know it was. And so I know that like that was kind of the original idea, but it seems at the very least, you're going to have an impedance mismatch, which kind of identified in this issue. And at worst, you're going to have cognitive overload as to like, well, which one should be doing the batching? And like, I don't know, like this is really confusing. So this is going to remove it. I've got a proof of concept PR that I opened here, which has a bunch of other cleanup in it. And mostly the go.sum files are the big removals, but it's still a very large PR, and I didn't want to like force that on people. So I've broken this up into a bunch of smaller PRs. That's what all of these are essentially. They're about like 80% of the actual work. And then there's probably one or two more follow-up PRs once these actually get merged. The really important one, is this PR, which adds benchmarks to the Jaeger exporter. Yeah, I'm seeing the thumbs up, and it turns out like it's really kind of helpful in understanding like the allocations as well as the operations and that kind of thing, and making sure that like removing the bundler isn't like a huge added burden, or it's going to cause severe performance impacts, which I validated in that proof of concept it doesn't. In fact, it reduces a lot of allocation, it reduces operation time, and that sort of thing. So, and I think it's also really helpful to have these sort of things. Probably for all of the exporters. I think there might be one for the OTLP, but like maybe Zipkin as well as we go to RC, just to understand like as we make changes, like are we progressively impacting people because our performance is being degraded? Like these are, these can definitely be used in really high throughput systems. So we want to make sure that that's kind of a concern that we address. So yeah, I wanted to get this merged so we can track as each one of these changes go through. I've already kind of like pseudo done that by cherry picking this PR into other things and showing like the actual benchmarking, but yeah, I think it's a positive change. So yeah, and then while waiting on those PRs to merge, I went back to everyone's favorite flaky test, and by everyone, I'm pretty sure it's just Anthony and me, so we have to deal with this test all the time that fails. And it's this idea that
okay, Tyler, I hit that test too.
Yeah, oh yeah, like we're not alone. Like it's just a really, really annoying test. So yeah, I think I've actually found a solution for it. I found a partial solution prior, but now I've got an actual solution where instead of doing any sort of waiting, we're just using, I wrapped the listener in the actual mock collector, and it just have it tell you when it gets a new connection instead of just waiting and assuming that a connection came through. And I've cleaned up a few other things as well that I think were actually causing some underlying errors. It's hard to validate because I've also found that the majority of this test failure comes on the Mac platform, and I am not testing on the Mac platform. Yeah, in the past month, saw 30 errors on Mac between 1.14 and 1.15, and just a few on Ubuntu. None on Windows, but I think that's because Windows is really slow in our CI system, and it just doesn't get to it. But that's not a gripe at Windows, just that the CI system implementation of Windows is got a lot over it. So. Yeah, so
I've noticed that like in GitHub Actions, stuff done using Mac OS takes probably the bootstrapping phase is like 10 times longer than something using Linux.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't actually know what their abstraction is there, but I would imagine there's just like another layer in between the two to try to, shim in a kernel plug or something like that. But yeah.
It turns out starting VMs in Windows or Mac just takes a long time.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately always going to be the case. So I think that's Punya on the telephone as well. But you would definitely be happy to know that I think I have a resolution for this one.
I'm thrilled.
Okay, cool. I'm also looking through a bunch of the other errors, and there's just when I have free time, I love that I get to do these kinds of things because they're force multipliers. Having these things fixed just is gonna make me feel better. Cool. So I think that's kind of it for the two that I've got in progress here. I don't know. I think this is Drew, or is this I can't remember. Sai, right? I don't know if you're on the call. I think I saw a PR come in for this.
I think there is a PR for this, or did it already land? Yeah, it looks like that PR might have already landed. There was another one related to Jaeger, I believe that was in process. No, sorry, the other one related to environment variables was for resource. That was the one that Drew has.
Okay, that's right. That's another one that needs more attention than I've given it. I definitely see some other people have kind of come in here, but that's another good one. Cool. I think this can be closed then, right? I think.
Yeah, I think that can be closed. It probably just didn't get linked to that PR.
Yeah, I think you're right. Just gonna just. Cool. Look at that, we're making progress again in the meeting. Awesome, down to 4. What is next? Sorry, go ahead, Aaron.
I do have a thing. The convenience function, the only thing that's holding that up is the Jaeger, which I know is under Flex. If you want, I'm okay closing that as long as something in Jaeger. We can review the Jaeger when you're all done.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, thanks for bringing that up because I was kind of waiting on you on that one. I actually need that trace provider to be returned. So yeah, thanks. I can submit a PR for that. Maybe not right after the meeting, but today I can definitely do that. I thought that you would submit something, so I just didn't do anything. But yeah,
I just haven't gotten back to it. I was going to put in a little note, like, except for the Jaeger, there's nothing left to do in this.
Okay, yeah, I'll submit a PR for that, and then I'll try to link it and close it later on this afternoon. That sounds great. Yeah, perfect, cool. Because that was also one of the other small PRs I needed to break out from this. So. Looks like communications are a really helpful thing, and I'm glad we have these meetings. Cool. Was that one of the ones that was in progress? Okay, cool.
I just moved it there.
Awesome. Cool. We got that one down. What's next? I think this is Drew. Yes. I think this is the open PR that he currently has, if I'm not mistaken, right, Anthony?
Yeah. So that should be addressed by the open PR that's out there. I think there was still some confusion everybody had about the order of overlays or underlays, but I think that the PR as it's written does what the spec says it should, even if I think the spec is wrong. So we should proceed.
Okay. Yeah, I remember this from last time. I also, once you said it, was like,
is there a spec issue about possibly changing that, Anthony?
I haven't created one. I don't know how much I care to fight that fight. I don't know if it's going to be viewed as a significant breaking change or, oh yeah, we always meant that. Which means I probably should just open an issue and create it. But yeah, I don't know that it matters enough for most things because I expect a lot of the resources that people are going to want to set by environment aren't going to be set by a detector and vice versa, right? the environment resources are probably going to be additive to the things you would find from a detector. But you never know.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I don't know if it's been a part of the conversation at the spec level before, so I do think that it's probably worth at least posting it. An issue is probably the best, as you said, because then it's tracked as
Okay.
well.
I will create an issue in the spec then and bring it up next week at the spec meeting.
Awesome. Cool. Moving on. One more. The OTOP exporter only for traces. I think this had a PR that Brian might have submitted. Yes, change these. Again, yeah, it just needs some reviews. Oh, I was actually going to try to. You guys don't have to see me label things. I wanted to keep these in the project as well, so we see these and have them tracked. But I can do that at another time. Then there's Aaron's, and then Pablo. Pablo, are you on the call?
Yeah. So I'm just getting the context here with this task, and like I know that we have some retries policy in the HTTP export, so I'm going to see if that works for the gRPC, and if not, I will try to port the collector retry.
Yeah, cool. That was, I think, what the consensus. Well, it was. The majority of the consensus, I think, from last week was exactly what you just said. You know, go through both of those and then look at the collector. The other thing to consider also is if this is going to be a severe undertaking, the specification I don't think is an absolute requirement that we support this. So it may be something that we could also document if you think that it's going to take like, I don't know, a month to do. But yeah, if you think that you can achieve this, which I don't think it's going to be like impossible to just copy the collector algorithm, then yeah, I think that we should probably try to do that.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, okay, cool. Cool, that's it for all of the in progress issues that I had. I don't actually think we had any more to-dos added. In fact, just lost two, so making a lot of progress. Wow, and all of the to-dos have somebody assigned to them, except for this one, which needs some investigation before our solution is actually defined. So yeah, we're doing really good, actually. Cool. Is there anything else that anybody want to talk about on that board before we move on, or can we kind of just jump into the next issue? Well, the only issue that's on the agenda. Cool. So I just wanted to bring this up. I had a colleague here at Splunk who's doing some work to try to integrate a customized wrapper around HTTP instrumentation, adding particular headers and that kind of thing. It's linked here in this repo. But it was kind of one of the things that I was noticing is that like some of the structure in the creation function is where we have to essentially pass in all of these other like options that are, you know, vendor specific. And then on top of that, you have to, you know, wrap like the idea of all of the OTel specific options and pass those in as well. And I think if this comes back to the idea that the options themselves are not like exportable and you can't really extend them as a third party, they're essentially locked in. And you know, I mentioned maybe there's a better way to do this, and it was definitely taken off, and Robert over here just kind of went with it, and he came up with a lot of ideas. As I think a few of you have already read, there's a lot of ideas, not much context, but he's been able to add a lot more context after the fact. And so there's some really good conversations. I have to admit that I haven't seen a lot of the stuff that just came in today, but I am seeing a lot of familiar faces on the call in this conversation. And specifically, Anthony, I think you were making some interesting points. I was just skimming this last one right before the meeting about, you know, maybe there's just some structure as to how you want to like wrap things instead of, you know, duplicating things is a really good point. And I think that that's something that I think Robert's going to go take a look at. He's also in, I think, Estonia. If you're watching this on recap, I apologize if that isn't correct. But yeah, definitely, I don't think he's awake at this point, or shouldn't be. And so, yeah, I think that there's some interesting ideas here because it really like pointed out to me that this is not going to be something that is a pain point just for him and Splunk, but I think for many people that want to wrap that instrumentation. As we already have that issue where we want to unify and standardize our configuration, I wanted to make sure that what we're standardizing on is useful for people and useful for instrumentation authors in the future. So I think it's a good issue to get a lot of feedback on and get a lot of information or brainstorming and just kind of like get this right before I go through and try to redo all of the configuration and all of the repos. I think is a good idea.
Yeah, I think the comments from earlier today by who is this? Thomas, about these options really shouldn't even be exported, is a good one as well, right? We export them so that the type, so that it can be documented, so that people can create slices of them to programmatically manipulate the options that they're using, but they're not really interfaces that are meant to be implemented or used outside of the package where they're defined. They're for configuring that package. And as for the structure that Splunk HTTP is trying to take here, I totally get the desire to simplify things for end users by providing them, hey, run this one function, hand it your HTTP handler, and you'll get everything all wrapped up, including the Splunk additional bits. That convenience is nice, but I think it might be limiting. Because it then forces the user to use the OTel HTTP instrumentation and precludes them from using anything else if they want to use a different handler or router. My last job, I had a function like that, but that was because I was able to make the choice for us that we're going to use OTel HTTP. We're not using another router, or if you are, just put it in here anyways, and this is the way we're instrumenting. I don't know if that's a choice that I would make as a vendor. I think Splunk's certainly welcome to do it, but if you are, I would still recommend that you provide your own implementations of those options. Then, have functional options for Splunk HTTP that can then internally invoke the OTel HTTP options.
I haven't gotten to the time to write that, but that was going to be my observation. If you are actually going to wrap this entirely, you should wrap it entirely and have its own presented interface that maybe under the hood just calls the OTel HTTP options, but there's still your abstraction, not our abstraction, because we may start changing, especially the underlying implementation in the config and whatnot.
On the subject of exporting the option types, I know that when I first started using functional options, I always made the option type unexported, and then ran into that problem of cases where callers wanted to build them up programmatically. So because there's some options, where you either supply it or you don't. You can't pass a Boolean value to it, let's say. And if Anthony, I think one of the ways that we first met was over a PR like that, where there was an option, right? Remember that, where we kind of changed it to like an enabled, disabled Boolean rather than presence or absence of the option. But the whole idea of where you can declare a slice of them and then programmatically add them in and then expand the slice out to call it. That whole technique is impossible for callers if you don't export the option type, which is unfortunate. That difference of how you can use the options just fine when the option type is not exported, but then you can't talk about collections of them.
Right. And I think that's a really important reason why we want to have that exported. But then, yeah, it's a fine line between that and then I think how much do you want to expose? Yeah, I think that's a hard one. I'm interested. I like the idea that Anthony put forward of just wrapping the handler gets rid of the problem entirely. I'm always a big fan of engineering away the problem. But yeah, I've got to think about it a little more. But cool. Yeah, if anyone else has opinions, this would be really helpful because I guess I'm using this as a precursor for another one of the issues that we have here, which we currently already have some best practices documented for options, but if these kind of lead us in a different direction, we may want to update them. And so then this issue right here would be something we need to address in a different way. So yeah, if you have opinions, please go comment. Cool. I see Rich has added logging in the OTLP exporter. I will hand it over to you, Rich.
Yeah, this is just a really simple question. You probably know the answer. As an end user of the OpenTelemetry for Go library, I've been sending spans to an OTLP endpoint over which I have no control. And so I'm wondering, how can I get it to just dump the spans that I'm sending in a JSON format so I can tell I'm doing it correctly? Is there a simple way to do this that I'm just forgetting, or do I just need to add logging all over the OTLP exporter?
Well, Rich, are you sitting down?
Oh, no.
So there's a lot, I think, here.
Okay.
We definitely there's an issue already. We wanted to add logging throughout the entire SDK, I think, as well as provide some sort of interface for exporters to use that sort of logging. It has been postponed, I think, till after RC, just because it wasn't considered something like super like critical.
Mhm.
So also in the OTLP, we don't have any logging plumbed in currently. I think in the Jaeger exporter, or maybe it's the Zipkin. I think it may be the Zipkin. There's like this weird thing I saw that you can actually provide it a logger, and it already has logging plugged in. Again, these are exporters that have existed for a long time. It's a long way to say, like, it may be in the future, you may be able to do exactly like what you're looking for. But until then, you would likely be best served by registering a second span processor that has the standard out exporter that will show you what spans are also being exported through that way. Unless somebody else has some brilliant ideas that I haven't thought of.
Well, I was going to say, also, look, I've been slightly on the side working to build an OTLP JSON exporter. It exports the actual OTLP. It will have to be registered with the span provider. So you do have some kind of divergence where they might not process at the same type, but you'll at least get the spans that you were generating. I can link it. I'll link it in the meeting notes.
Hey, thanks. That's a big help.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a really good idea as well. Usually it's kind of the same thing. Like you're gonna have to diverge at the span processor level, but like I don't know. It's the next step in a for loop, right? Ideally, it should be getting the same data.
Just a heads up, though. This is like real proof of concept type code. So
sure.
So
I welcome feedback. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Cool. Yeah, and ideally, yeah, this is something. And then on top of that, the OpenTelemetry project as a whole, this is the other side of the story, wants to provide logging signals as well. So like I can imagine somewhere there's going to be an internal hookup to that structure or whatever that signal structure is going to look like as well. So maybe there's a really good story there. And I think that might also been one of the reasons we wanted to wait on plumbing in the logging system into the SDK. But,
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Cool. The last thing I added, as I just remembered during this talk, it kind of came up in the specification meeting on Tuesday. For those of you that have been following along in the project as a whole, the metrics have been in this project in the OpenTelemetry SIG for a while. The Go SIG itself has been the proof of concept for a lot of the metrics things that we've actually built and have been somewhat ratified into an experimental SDK specification. That's all getting a really big facelift. It might be a way to say it. It might also be that it's like, a V2 iteration is actually being developed. So it's in the next, not this next hour, I guess it'd be 2 hours. The metrics API is going to kind of just talk a little bit briefly about like what we want to do in that transition phase, because obviously people are using it. We're using it in our contrib library. And so like how we want to make that transition, is it going to be a hard cut? Are we just going to throw things out and then say like, this is the last version that this experimental, metrics implementation existed and we're going to the next one? The long and short is there's no really good answer here. And I know that it's going to make people mad, even though it's an experimental and it's been listed as experimental, and but people are starting to rely on it. And so I think there's going to be ideas there. It's also going to be brought up at the maintainers meeting next Monday. And hopefully we can get a consensus as to what other SIGs are going to be doing and maybe even better ideas as to like what the best process is. It's definitely something we want to weigh the time to deliver the new thing that everyone else is going to be expected to build versus just, making the path between the old thing and the new thing somewhat possible without like burdening the maintainers of the project just enormously. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because that's there's no definite decisions that are being made. If you want to be a part of the conversation, show up to the next metrics API meeting in just a little bit, or the maintainers meeting on Monday. It says maintainers meeting, everyone's welcome, but you will see all of the maintainers from all the SIGs there. So if you ever have a question for all of us, we're there. But yeah, just wanted to bring that up and let everyone know that.
I think that also raises the potentially interesting question of what do we do with the metrics implementations that we have in contrib and instrumentations in this transition period? Do we just yank them all out and say, none of these metrics are going to be available until we have something that's stable? Because I think that once traces go 1.0, we're going to want to get contrib stable as well and be able to declare stability there.
Yeah, I'm hoping to have some direction from the TC or from the project as a whole as to what that decision is going to be, because that is a really important question. I know that like our runtime instrumentation is, I'm pretty sure Josh is using that at Lightstep right now. So like, I mean, it's definitely, I love that instrumentation when I do play around with things. Like it's a really good piece of tooling. So I would like a solution to that. Having a solution being like, well, we're just not going to offer metrics for a long time is understandable. It's not great. And like that also might be a really good solution is like the runtime, since it is only a metrics package, just it doesn't, it goes into a deprecated status. It doesn't get updated because the metrics pipeline is not going to get updated, or it's just going to get pinned at a version. And then all the ones that are mixed, then it becomes a little more complex. It's like maybe we just pull out that from there. I think these are really good questions that I definitely don't want to make a decision on in vacuum, let alone too suddenly without getting some feedback. So yeah, good point. Well, cool. I definitely will try to make the metrics SIG meeting. I definitely have some other things I need to get done this afternoon as well. But otherwise, I don't see anything else on the agenda. If anybody else has something they would like to talk about, any great user stories that you guys have come across in the past week, or any sort of cool experiments. I was hoping Josh might show up. He's been doing a hack week last week.
I'm noticing in the attendees list that congratulations may be in order for Steve. Looks like you may have a new job at a recently public company.
Oh.
Yeah, we got acquired about 6 weeks ago, and then Coinbase went public yesterday. So
wow.
We knew it was coming, but the company name we just found out we're going to be called Coinbase Cloud within Coinbase. So the Bison Trails name will go away in the coming months. But thank you. Figured I should make it more accurate here in the list.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, congrats.
Mostly just showing up at the right time in an acquisition.
That's a big part of the game, isn't it?
But it's exciting. So our own owning company is a very large customer of us. So it becomes even more so now.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. I don't think there's any other announcements in there. Awesome. Well, I think if that's it, and nobody else has anything else to add to the agenda, I'm happy to get back the next 25 minutes, and I'm happy to give back 25 minutes to everyone else. So hopefully I'll see y'all later on. And if not, I'll see you virtually, and hopefully we're reviewing your PRs. So talk to y'all next week.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.